Oh, that darn tree gets redder every day. Winter's coming. Gotta go, gotta go. Back in the shop again. So we're fitting sheet metal here tonight. This is going to be a quick video. We're not going to get a whole lot into things. Just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on what's been happening. Got some new hydraulic hoses custom made that are going to go between the hydraulic pump, which goes right there. They snake down below the filter up over the bell housing. There's another loop right here that holds them, and then they will go into the control that's beneath the gas tank. So about $100 a piece. Not too cheap to have those custom made, but they're going to fit well, so that's the main thing. So the fuel tank's been in place for a few days, and to replicate the insulators that are under it, I have a couple of wooden shims just holding it up off of the mounting pad. Keeps the front end at about the proper installed height. I've got the air cleaner wrapped up with rag so I don't ding that when I set the hood on. The grill is on the radiator, everything hand tight. I made sure everything fits really well around these contours, and also around the front up here. Also fits pretty well to those two locating holes right there. So I did have to take the upper radiator hose off because I had to slide the entire radiator back about ½ an inch. I've already had the hood on there once, and I had about a ½ inch wide gap right here that I had to correct. So that's also where this brace rod comes into play that I repaired the other day. That's why you don't just want to work around a welded fixed nut on there, because when you're trying to really set all this stuff up and get proper alignment and proper gaps on everything, you need to have adjustability back here, and you don't want to be locked to a certain position. So that's where I'm probably going to count the turns on this nut once I get everything positioned where I want it, so that I have a good reference point to reset this after everything is all in paint. So now that I've made the first adjustment on the radiator, and I have the radiator and grill, and I have all that brought back, let's set that hood back on here again, see how everything lines up. So I'll start by looking at this side. This side definitely fits the best. Air cleaner is centered well in the hole. You can see why I wrapped that rag around there to prevent any of that from getting any nicks or dings. When we put the retention clips in here, that's going to hold that in nice and tight to the tank. And I tell you what, that accent line looks really nice. So if you sight down where the tank seam is, and then down that accent line and where it humps up on top of the radiator, it's looking like a nice straight line all the way through. You don't see like the tank going down and the hood going up and then the grill at a different angle. I'm liking what I'm seeing here. That fits almost perfect right there, and we've got our gap pretty much as good as you can get it on an old Farmall right there. We're even lining up on the accents pretty well. For a tractor this old, the sheet metal really wasn't that bad. That's half the battle right there. Opposite side now, you can see I put the retention clips in place to keep it in. This side wants to spring away a little bit more, and I've actually brought this down and in a little bit. You look down at the accent line here where we can see, and I'm not seeing anything that really bothers me. To me, that looks pretty good. We are out a little bit further from the fuel tank right here. That's still acceptable. I'm not going to worry at all about that. We get a little wide up here at the front. For the most part, our accents line up. Now remember, this is a much older grill, I think, than what this hood is, but I'm not going to get too worried about that right there. You look at it from this angle, we have a little bit more gap right here, but I could close that up with a hammer and a dolly if I got stubborn enough and I spent enough time on it. Remember, we are going to be roaching this thing up and down dead furrows after all. It is just a working tractor, so if this was going to be a showpiece, I'd try and tighten it up a little bit. At this point, I don't have an hour and a half to mess around with that. There's so many other things that I need to do instead, so I'm going to call this sheet metal good for this machine right here. I'm certainly not dissatisfied with it, and it will all look pretty good when you get some paint on it. What you really want to look at is like this radius arc right here. And you can see where the light kind of shines on it. You're getting kind of a nice straight shiny line all the way back through to the fuel tank. Once you get paint on that, I think she's going to look just fine. So kind of reading between the lines at this point. I should get that emblem put on here and get a couple holes drilled while this is still in the raw. I might find time to do that tonight. I've been doing so many other higher priority things. We've got some stuff, pretty much everything masked, ready for primer and paint. I'm going to try and do that this weekend if the weather cooperates right here. You can see I got, you look at all the boards with fasteners on them. This is going to be our largest batch of fasteners by far. It's unbelievable how much hardware it takes to hold 2 back wheels, 4 wheel weights, and 2 fenders on the on the back end of a tractor. But and all the other seat stuff is set up here. Nice stance. We can flip everything over, get both sides primer and paint. Hopefully get fixed up pretty well for paint as far as this weekend goes. One other thing I wanted to touch on real quick. It's best shown on video than to try and describe it. Probably the #1 comment below the last video was, could I flop that throttle rod to the other side of the pivot in order to make everything clear through the pass-through hole that was in that Charlene gauge pod bracket? I'll show you why that would not work. So our throttle rod is going to come from about right here, and it comes straight down through, and this is your entire opening right here. Now the steering shaft is going to go through here and take up most of that space right there. So you're pretty much left with this area right here for that throttle rod to go down and to that pivot. Now if you put it on the other side of the pivot, you'd be just outside of that opening, so it's not going to work. So if I can get the light positioned properly here, if you sight straight down that opening, you can see where the throttle rod would come in here and probably intersect with the far side of that through hole where they had already augured some of that material out. So we certainly don't have any more room to get any further out here. You can even see a couple witness marks right off the end of my finger there in the side of that brace where that rod had been rubbing anyway. That's already how close we are to the edge of that opening in the hood. So hopefully that answers that question. Unfortunately, we're going to have to, like I say, just take the hole out in that bracket. It's an aftermarket piece, and I just don't think it was ever properly positioned to begin with. So that pretty much covers that. There, as you've just seen, I've got the holes drilled for our new IH emblem in the center of the grill, and we also got the special stainless steel screws that hold it on, and these are just a standard screwdriver head on them, and the slot is not cut very deep, so it's very easy to round those out with a screwdriver. So what I'll do is I'll take just a standard old screw. This is a Phillips, so it gets a little bit better grip, and I'll just go with this one and kind of pre-cut the threads, if you will, that the stainless decorative piece is going to use. So, sorry, I probably got most of this shadowed out by my hands. Kind of dark up in front of this tractor. It's dark in this whole area of the shop out here. GoPros usually have a little bit of trouble with that, but I'll just go in a little bit at a time. I like to drill the holes slightly undersized so that you get good bite with the screw. We'll just run in and we're just cutting threads at this point. That's all we're doing with this one. Take it back out. Works a lot better if you're going to bugger up the head of one of these. It's best to use one that you don't need to retain for decoration, right? Couple of burrs on there. I'll put the emblem up here. We'll match the decorative one up to the threads we just cut in there. Carefully keeping the screwdriver onto the head of the screw with my fingers so I don't slip and gouge it. And there we are. The new IH logo is affixed to the front of the grill. I'm going to take that back off for paint, obviously, and we still have the plastic protective covering on it. I'm not taking that off either until it's ready to be on there for good, but that's where that's going to live from here on out. All right, I think it's about time to call it a night. Grill and hood are off. Gas tank can just be lifted off at any time, so it's going to sit right there for now because it's out of the way. I built a little bit of a stand for the hood. Should be able to paint the bottom side first and then flip it over, set it on that, and get all the way around the edges and everything. And I think I'm just going to do the same thing with the grill here and just set it up on the engine stand just like that. That should work just fine. So, man, I think we've got a pretty decent paint batch thrown together. Believe it or not, it's been about 2 weeks getting all that stuff ready, but a whole lot of behind the scenes work that just I didn't take any time to film. And there's still a little bit left as far as surface prep, wiping everything down, getting everything degreased, but hopefully this weekend the weather holds and the equipment keeps working and we can get another good batch of primer and paint done. Boy, this is going to be most of the rest of it right here. We're going to cut right here. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully next time you see me, we'll have something sprayed.